Hello, Uta here of Trans Widow, Uta Hagen YouTube channel. And as well, I have a WordPress blog that what I'm about to read to you is already posted on, and that is utahagengrasswidow.wordpress.com, and that link is always in the notes. Very soon I will be reading the last set of 20 questions to ask a trans widow that our last trans widow I profiled had done for me. But I feel that the news about this study from Germany and another study from the Netherlands, of all places, they are very, very significant, and they show that it's a phase, that cross-sex ideation is a phase. The statistics show in the German study that after a couple of years, with a certain group, 72% stopped. With another group, 63% stopped, massive majority, and re-identified with their biological sex. I pose that if they followed these categories of people even longer, say up to 7 to 10 years, that the detransition rate or desistance rate would be closer to 92%, something like that. And, you could ask, why is it that we didn't have these kind of studies results available until now? Well, take a look at a web page which is called Trans Journalists Association Style Guide, and that set of rules about how anything involving cross-sex ideation is to be reported demonstrates that it's suppressed and censored. So that is a major reason why we don't know until now. All right. This is from the Daily Signal. I think the name of the author was Ben Johnson. You can check on my WordPress blog. Or, alternatively, subscribe to the Daily Signal, because you will find quite a bit of information in their newsletters. So here we go. A massive years-long study shows the overwhelming majority of young people who identify as transgender, in other words, in the Hagen lexicon, young people who express cross-sex ideation, will grow out of the diagnosis within 5 years. So they focused on 5 years. I think 7 years is an even more significant amount of time. We're going to have to encourage and promote the idea that the longer you study this, the more detransition there is. That's my hypothesis. A similar supermajority of trans-identifying people suffered from at least one other psychological condition, found researchers. This is such as autism, bipolar disorder, depression, etc. Found researchers who tracked all children and young adults diagnosed with gender dysphoria over a 9-year period. They didn't follow everyone, though, for 9 years. So they followed for a 9-year period individuals who had some kind of health records, insurance records, etc., that showed that they were getting treatment for cross-sex ideation, and they followed each individual case for 5 years. The Central Institute for Statutory Health Insurance in Germany reviewed all the medical billing records from the nation's healthcare providers for insured people between the ages of 5 and 24 diagnosed with gender identity disorders from 2013 to 2022. That's their 9 years. Researchers then combed through the data to identify trends in the number of children and adolescents diagnosed with transgenderism, including the prevalence, demographics, and duration of those struggling with their gender identity. 2 out of 3 young people medically diagnosed with gender dysphoria will no longer identify as a member of the opposite sex within 5 years. 2 out of 3. Researchers found overall that 63.6% of trans-identifying children and adolescents desisted from their clinically confirmed gender diagnosis, and only 36.4% had a confirmed gender identity disorder diagnosis after 5 years. I do wonder, I said this in my notes in the blog with this, what if they had followed 7 years, 7 to 10 years? I think they would find an even higher rate of detransition and desistance. Experts found the majority of all people who identified as transgender desisted during that time frame. The most likely group to change its mind, is 15 to 19-year-old females with 72.7% desisting. That's almost 73%. But a majority of young men, 50.3%, who came to their transgender identity in adulthood, that's males aged 20 to 24, also desisted in 5 years. Oh, see, Blanchard's magic 2 years are meaningless in the face of this. Meaning his protocol that you cross-dress for 2 years and keep your job, and if you don't desist, then you must be an authentic, true transsexual. Whereas, like Exolansic, I say it is placebo effect. Okay, similarly, nearly 3/4 of young people who identify as transgender, 72.4%, had at least one other psychiatric condition. Trans-identifying young people were most likely to suffer from depressive disorders, majority of females, 15.5%, and about half of males, 49.3%, as well as anxiety disorders, 23.5% for females and 34% for males. Emotionally unstable personality disorders, that was about 12.5% for both males and females. And then borderline type, 12% for females, almost 18% for males. ADHD, almost 13% for females, almost 13% for males. And post-traumatic stress disorder, almost 10% for females and almost 14% for males. Okay, the researchers note, with regard to psychiatric comorbidities, our results are consistent with the literature, at least for depressive disorders. The number of young people identified with gender identity disorders rose by 780%. That must be from 2013 to 2022. Although they note some of this increase is due to the way the condition is coded, meaning for their insurance purposes, because the records were gotten through insurance records. Although they note some of this increase is due to the way the condition is coded, correcting for this still shows a nearly threefold, that means 3 times increase, in transgender diagnoses. That is 289% increase. They pointed out that other studies show similar increases in the number of doctors identifying young people as transgender, ranging from 280% to an incredible 1,019%. That's the number of doctors making these diagnoses. That is a little interesting factoid. In almost all years, the highest prevalence of transgender-related diagnoses were found in the age group of 15 to 19-year-old female adolescents, they noted. Researchers say the reason for this spike could vary from the real increase in prevalence, increased awareness, decreasing stigmatization, to social contagion and overdiagnosis. Somebody needs to look into how many went to this certain group, how many went to this certain set of doctors, this certain clinic. There are a lot of details we could glean. Further research into the reasons for the low persistence of diagnosis. Let's memorize that phrase, low persistence of diagnosis. And the observed increase in prevalence is required. That is, further research is required. In the meantime, the stability of diagnosis and the high prevalence of accompanying mental disorders should be taken into account in recommendations for starting gender reassignment therapy in adolescents. Also of note, I got this out of Graham Linehan's newsletter. He has that, what is his? I can't think of Graham Linehan's, The Mess We're In. The Mess We're In. That is his channel. In his newsletter was the valuable information that in the United Kingdom, in the last something like 9 months, the number of individuals showing up for this diagnosis has gone down markedly. And I would say that makes sense. Okay, low persistence of diagnosis, the observed increase in prevalence. Issues. In the meantime, the stability of diagnosis and the high prevalence of accompanying mental disorders should be taken into account in recommendations for starting gender reassignment therapy. Gender reassignment therapy. They should call it what it is. Name the behavior. Taking wrong sex hormones, taking, before that, puberty blockers, and removing and altering healthy organs. Those results track with verifiable expert data flooding in from around the world. And this is from the Netherlands, where the so-called vaunted Dutch protocols, based on a whopping total of something like 32 responses at the end of the study in 2014, they came up with this puberty blockers and hormones and operations and all this. But now, this year, they are finding contradictory results, data. After reviewing the records of 2,772 adolescents aged 11 to 24, so I would say that some of them are adults, but anyway, individuals aged 11 to 24 in the Netherlands, they found a desistance rate of 64%. Young people were nearly 10 times more likely to feel better about their birth sex, in other words, their sex, than worse during that time frame, the study reported. Gender non-contentedness, the Dutch invented this gender non-contentedness thing, while being relatively common during early adolescence, in general decreases with age and appears to be associated with a poorer self-concept and mental health throughout development. Other studies have found people who identify as transgender or non-binary are up to 6 times as likely to be diagnosed with autism than the norm. than people who are not having cross-sex ideation. Pediatric transgender facility whistleblower Jamie Reed, who is not a right-wing or Christian anything, revealed that nearly all children who came to the center there, this is St. Louis, were presented with very serious mental health problems. She specifically identified autism, ADHD, depression, anxiety, PTSD, trauma, OCD, and eating disorders. The combination of these studies and growing weaknesses in the transgender so-called standards of care based on low-quality studies, like the one of the Dutch protocols, De Vries, Cohen-Kettenis, Steensma et al., 2014, with only a final cohort of 32 or 33 answering the questions after all the treatments. That is what's called low-quality research. Okay, where was I? Oh, gosh. Right. But the groundbreaking CAS review in the United Kingdom found remarkably weak evidence is the foundation of this affirmative stuff. Leaked files from the primary medical group driving gender dysphoria diagnosis, in other words, the lobbying group called World Professional Association for Transgender Health, aka WPATH, leaked files from WPATH have similarly undermined the affirmation model. Yes, that is thanks to Michael Schellenberger, and there's a woman, I want to call her Michelle something. And those are, I hope that there are more leaks. Whoever did the leak, I assume it's someone who's really deep in there. Do it some more. Okay. A number of medical experts have spoken out against this so-called consensus. Transition affirmation is not proven to be safe or effective long-term, said Dr. Andre Van Mal, representing the American College of Pediatricians, an alternative organization to the AAP, the American Academy of Pediatricians. It does not reduce suicides. This is Dr. Van Mal. It does not repair mental health issues or trauma. Minors cannot give truly informed consent. Children have developing and immature brains. Their minds change often. They are prone to risk-taking. They are vulnerable to peer pressure, and they don't grasp long-term consequences. As such, he says, refusing to provide gender transition procedures or so-called gender-affirming health is non-discriminatory and is appropriate both professionally and scientifically. And in my blog about this, the most recent one at utahagengrasswidow.wordpress.com, you can find the links within that blog to the actual German of the study, and very soon they're going to publish an English version. Some of the details in these studies was arcane, and often they use captured language, like they say trans children and things like that, as opposed to describing the behavior and saying those patients expressing cross-sex ideation. Please do go out and enjoy the flowers. Hydrangea, lavender, coreopsis, some floppy roses, sweet peas, lavender, calla lily, snapdragon, and this orange milkweed. So do give yourself a break and enjoy nature. Also, the butterfly count is at 52. This is breaking all records for the Great Spangled Fritillaries.